Hello, this is Lady Boulay, and I hope you're having a lovely day. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your comments, and thank you for your thumbs up. Thank you for all you do to support the channel. And yes, we are commanded to love one another, whether we want to or not, or whether we agree with each other or not. Okay, y'all, so today we need to talk about a pattern. Not a moment, not a clip, not a one-off incident, a pattern coming from the Daily Wrap-Up Crew podcast. A pattern of inviting guests who come on their platform specifically to demean Black Americans while the hosts sit back, fake like they're surprised, and let them just talk and talk in a demeaning fashion toward Black Americans. And at this point, it is not an accident, it is a content strategy. They will pretend that they are surprised, but they know exactly what these people are going to say. Recently, they brought on a Haitian immigrant guest who, unprovoked, referred to Black Americans as dirty Black Americans. She said it with her whole chest, no hesitation, no context, just open contempt. And what did the host do? They laughed, they softened it, they let it ride. There was no real pushback. One of them pretended that he was going to correct her, but the reality is there was no boundary. It's three men on that panel, and not one of them said, no, we don't tolerate disrespect toward any group on this platform. No, that was not said, which makes me wonder what is the lineage of those three guys? I don't believe they're FBA. And at this point, we need to have a paperwork check, as Jason Black says, because their paperwork might be dirty. They may not be of our lineage, which is why they're willing to sit there and tolerate that kind of disrespect. Let's be very clear. A responsible platform would have shut that down immediately. A responsible platform would have said, we don't do that here. A responsible platform would have protected the integrity of the conversation. But that's not what happened because outrage pays, disrespect pays, division pays, and they know it. This is rage bait content dressed up as discussion. And this isn't new. This podcast has a long track record of bringing on anti Black American immigrants who come in with hostility toward our lineage. They know exactly what kind of comments these guests are going to make. They know exactly how the clips will circulate. They know exactly how the algorithm will reward them. And every time the Black American community ends up spending days fighting off some ignorant, uninformed, irrelevant comment from someone who doesn't know our history, doesn't know our culture, and doesn't know our lineage. This is not the first time the Daily Wrap-Up Crew has brought on somebody like that. Not very long ago, we saw something very similar to this coming from some Haitian women on this very same podcast. So it's something about Haitians. I don't know if one of those guys is Haitian, and this is a passive aggressive way of insulting Black Americans. I don't know, but we need to find out. We need to find out who these people are. So while they're trying to build their following and get views, this kind of content keeps Black Americans in a constant state of defense. It drains us of our energy, it sows division, and it's intentional. They are doing this intentionally. This is what we need to understand. They are not doing this, is just not happenstance. They just brought her on and didn't know what she was going to say. They knew exactly what she was going to say. And I'm going to make this point again, and it might make a few people uncomfortable. But the reaction those hosts gave or didn't give to that woman tells me they may not share the same cultural reflexes as Black Americans who grew up in this lineage. which means they're not like us. Because when you're Black American, when you come from this lineage, when you understand the weight of being mocked, stereotyped, and disrespected in your own country, you don't sit quietly while someone calls your people dirty. You don't giggle. You don't soften it. You shut it down immediately. And they didn't do that. So when neither of those three hosts responded with that instinctive pushback, it raised a real question about whether they even understand the weight of what was said, or whether they are simply detached enough from our lineage that they don't feel the sting of that insult. That is problematic, and that's why I say this podcast is problematic and is an enemy to Black Americans. Now, let me address the guest directly. She was a Haitian immigrant. She came on their platform and called Black Americans dirty, unprovoked. She basically walked on the set. They asked her something about her lineage. She said she was Haitian and asked them what they were. And somebody said a Black American. And then she said a dirty Black American. That's simply how it came off. Now, I'm not going to insult her homeland of Haiti. That's not my lane. But I will say this: when you come to a country where Black Americans fought, bled, and died to create the freedoms you now enjoy, the bare minimum is respect. What you're not going to do is stand on the foundation we built and spit on the people who built it. And that is essentially what she did. And they sat there and let her do it. That is why I say these are not our people. I don't agree with everything Jason Black or Tariq Nasheed say. I really don't. And and it's understandable that I wouldn't. But one thing they're not going to let anybody do is let somebody stroll onto their platform and disrespect Black Americans. They are not going to let somebody come on their platform and disrespect our lineage. They have boundaries and they have standards. Meanwhile, this daily wrap up crew keeps handing microphones to people who show up with open contempt for Black Americans. And instead of shutting it down, the hosts just sit there acting like it's entertainment. That's not neutrality. That's not letting people speak. That's a platform choosing disrespect because it's profitable. And every Black American who supports that platform needs to take that into consideration. They choose disrespect of our people because it's profitable. All of these immigrants have to come over here and build a platform by demeaning Black Americans to make money because at the end of the day, nobody's really interested in them. And here's something that needs to be said. At a certain point, you have to call it what it is. If your show can't function without someone taking cheap shots at Black Americans, then maybe you don't actually have a show. Maybe you're not hosting conversations. Maybe you're just manufacturing outrage because you don't have the depth to do anything else. If you can't carry a discussion without leaning on disrespect toward Black Americans, then it might be time to rethink your format or rethink whether this is the job for you. In other words, maybe you need to go out and get a real job. Because here's the truth: if your platform depends on disrespecting Black Americans to stay relevant, then the problem isn't the guests. The problem is the platform. And it's time we say that plainly. The problem in this scenario really was not this ignorant woman. She's not the problem. That's what she thinks. She has a right to her opinion. But for somebody to platform her like that, knowing that it's demeaning and degrading to Black Americans, and then not know how to handle it, because after all, I believe they brought her onto that platform for that purpose, but not even have the dignity and not having the decency to say, no, no, we're not going to go there. Because what was she on there for anyway? I never did figure out what she was on there for. I don't watch them because I think it's just garbage. But, I don't know what she was on there to discuss. But that's what went viral. And I believe that's why they had her on there. But anyway, y'all, I'm not going to play it. I'm not going to play that kind of garbage anymore because it's demeaning to me and I think it's demeaning to you. I will tell you about it And I will tell you what the solution is. I think the solution here is that Black Americans do not support these kind of platforms. Okay, y'all, thank you for listening. Let me know what you think about the video and have a wonderful evening.